Howdy YouTube, welcome back to the channel. No matter who you are, I think we can all agree that times are getting more and more uncertain every single day. So with these crazy times, I think a lot of us are wondering, are there hard times on the horizon? And whether you believe in something like possibly a grid down scenario, maybe a nuclear bomb, maybe something more practical, a little bit less dramatic like just another Great Depression. Either way, I think we can all agree that we need to be prepared for a long-term survival situation if something like that were to occur. And what's that line old Hank Jr. taught us? I got a shotgun, a rifle, and a four-wheel drive, and you can finish the rest in the comments. And so in tonight's video, I'm going to be going over those items. Not so much the truck, but these ones. So before we get into the video, just keep in mind, I'm just a country boy from Western Pennsylvania. I'm no expert. I'm just giving you my opinion on some things. Before you get angry in the comments, remember, it ain't that serious. It's just a YouTube video, okay? But at the end of the day, hit that like and subscribe button. Drop a comment down below. Anything you do to support the channel would be greatly appreciated. All right, let's get back into the topic. All right, so as you can tell, I live on a little bit of land here, and so we're going to mostly be talking about firearms that you would use on a homestead in a long-term survival scenario. But for the most part, you know, you'd probably prefer to be out in a rural area like this where you can grow crops and do all that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to get into all that survival stuff too much. I'm mostly just going to talk about the firearms because that's what this channel's all about. All right, so the first gun that I think you need, and this isn't just for a homesteader, but this goes for literally every single American out there. In my opinion, you need some sort of handgun that you can either conceal carry or open carry. Either way, I'll call it an EDC gun, a gun that you can carry every single day, something that is always on your body. In this case, I have my Glock 20 Gen 4 and 10mm with a Streamlight TLR1 on there, and usually I open carry this when I'm out here on the property, but sometimes I can conceal carry it as well if I want to. Then also, I don't care if you go with a Glock, you could go with something like this Smith & Wesson Shield Plus in 9mm. That's a perfect little EDC gun for somebody, and you know, something like this is going to ensure that you always have a gun on you. You don't like semi-autos? Great. Carry a revolver, Smith & Wesson Model 19-2 and 357 Magnum. Okay? I don't care what you carry. We're not going to go into all that. At the end of the day, you got to have a gun on you. Okay? So you can't carry a long gun with you all the time. So having a handgun is very important to make sure that you always have something with you, because if you don't have a gun on you, you're unarmed, and therefore you're at a disadvantage. So in my opinion, the EDC handgun is one of the most, if not the most important thing that every single American should have for some sort of survival situation. Now, one that might get overlooked here a little bit is like this Ruger SR22. I think everybody, especially on a homestead, should have some sort of 22 handgun for multiple reasons. We're going to go over here in a minute in the video, but 22 shells are the survivalist round. That's all there is to it. They're lightweight, they're cheap, you can get thousands, tens of thousands of them, whatever. And with a 22 handgun, you can shoot it all day and not have to worry about, you know, ammo costs and that kind of thing. It's really good for new shooters to learn on and training and all that kind of stuff. And we're going to talk about, you know, the threaded barrel on there, how that could come in handy as well. And the next ones we're going to go over are 22s. So I don't care, again, if it's your granddaddy's old Mossberg 22 that's been sitting in your closet for 10 years, or if it's an AR-15 chambered in 22 long rifle. Either way, you need a 22 long rifle because the ammo is so cheap you can stockpile it and it'll be great for small game. And my personal choice for this is going to be a Ruger 1022. The Ruger 1022 is probably the most popular 22 in America. I like that it's so common, so it's going to be easier to find parts for. I like that it's semi-automatic, so you can have quicker follow-up shots. Heaven forbid you actually needed to use this in some sort of defensive or, you know, scenario like that. It'd be nice to have quicker follow-up shots, right? Not ideal for self-defense, but in a pinch it could work. You got 10 round magazines, come with 25 round magazines. This one I got from Elk County Ammo and Arms in St. Mary's, PA. I bought the gun there. They actually gave me the suppressor because they're a huge supporter of the channel, so go check them out. That is a Banish 22 suppressor, and I love this little gun. I threw a Hawk red dot on there so that it's a little bit easier to aim and that kind of thing. And whether it be taking squirrels or rabbits or whatever, you got to have a 22 in my opinion. So the 1022 is light, it's compact, and the big thing is here, it's quiet. To me, sound is very important in a survival situation. So check this out. I mean, I just shot that thing and you couldn't even hear it, right? So all jokes aside, why is sound so important? So in a survival situation like this, there's a chance you may not want to be detected. Whether it be an angry neighbor or looters, staying quiet is probably going to be kind of important. I mean, I think about brown bears in Kodiak, Alaska. I've heard stories that a lot of times when they hear a gunshot, they go towards the gunshot because they hear that as a dinner bell. They know there's a dead animal there that they can go eat. So it's the same idea. There's going to be bad people out there, and if they hear a gunshot, they're going to assume that if they hear a little 22 go off, that maybe you just shot a squirrel or a rabbit that they can come and take from you. Well, you might want to have a suppressor. That way, they don't hear you as far away, right? And so you can kind of stay undetected. Another thing is, maybe you're hunting somewhere on, land that maybe is or isn't yours, or somebody thinks it's theirs, whatever. The last thing you want to do is get into some sort of land war during a survival situation. So being able to go undetected is very, very important. Now, this next item on the list is actually not a firearm. It's the same idea, but it's not a gun. It goes along with what I was talking about with the 22. You want to be suppressed, you want to be quiet as much as you can, so that you're not causing a disturbance, so that you're not attracting other people to come and take your stuff. This next weapon has been used for thousands of years to take down anything from rabbits to American bison. And I'm talking about the bow and arrow. It's old, it's primitive, but it will get the job done. And the thing about bows and arrows, they are quiet, and so if you had to shoot a deer or something like that, it will be more quiet than any firearm out there. So if you're trying to really be stealthy, a bow and arrow is a good way to go. And because they're so simple, I think that they're actually going to be more sustainable as well. In other words, if you run out of bullets, it's going to be awfully hard to make a new bullet. If you run out of arrows, on the other hand, I don't know about you, but I could see myself being able to go out in the woods and make an arrow a lot easier than one of these. So I think, honestly, that the bow and arrow is something that's highly overlooked. Us gun guys, we love our guns and everything, but if you really, really, really are serious about your long-term survival, you're going to need to get a bow and arrow, and you're going to need to learn how to shoot it. Now, this is a recurve bow. This is what I would choose for long-term survival, just because it's very simple, like I talked about. There's nothing on here that can really break other than the limbs themselves. If the string broke, it would be fairly simple to replace the string somehow. We could find a way to replace that string. If, again, you run out of arrows, you can come up with new arrows. But you might want to go with something like a compound bow. I also have one of those. And with all of these guns and weapons, guys, options are best. So ideally, you'd have more than one. But with a compound bow, it's going to be a lot easier to shoot. You can shoot it a lot farther. It's going to take down bigger animals. It is far superior when it comes to hunting. Absolutely, I think, if you're serious about hunting and stuff, a compound bow or even a crossbow is a great way to go. I think it would be a great survival tool. The only reason, again, that I said I would pick the recurve over the compound bow for long-term survival is because me personally, I look at this compound bow, and if something breaks on here, I probably don't have spare parts for it. If something happens to my bow, and I'm probably like most people, if something happens to your bow, there's a good chance you have to take it to a bow shop to get it fixed, right? Because we don't have the tools and the things necessary, or even the knowledge necessary in a lot of cases, in order to fix something. So if a cable were to break on here, if one of the cams were to break, if limbs were to break, I'm kind of screwed, to be honest. I don't really know how I would fix this thing. I'm sure maybe we could figure it out, but it's going to be way more difficult to fix this bow than it is to fix something like this. In fact, I can just make a new recurve bow if I had to. So I think archery equipment is something that's highly underrated for survival, and the guns and all are great, but if you really are serious about, being able to take game, take it quietly, and do it for a very, very long time, you're gonna need a bow and arrow, in my opinion. Okay, this next category is one of my personal favorites. We are talking about the good old shotgun. And again, I don't care if it's your granddaddy's double barrel 16 gauge made back in the 50s or 60s, or a Benelli M4. To me, it doesn't matter. As long as you have some sort of shotgun. I know with this 16 gauge, it'll put down a squirrel, it'll put down a rabbit, it'll put down a pheasant, it'll put down a grouse. It could even put down a deer. And that's the great thing with shotguns, is you have a lot of versatility. Speaking of versatility, you might want to go with something like this if you have one, is an over-under. In this case, this is a Savage Model 24. 22 Magnum over 20 gauge. And so really this is, you know, one of the most versatile guns that you could find anywhere. These are a little bit more rare nowadays, but back in the day, these were highly prized possessions, and still today they are, because you have a 22 Magnum over top and you have a 20 gauge on the bottom. So you can walk around with one gun and have two different types of ammo. Now the thing is, those calibers might be a little bit of oddballs, so most people are probably going to go with something like a standard pump action 12 gauge. This is a Stevens 320, nothing wrong with it. It's a very cheap shotgun, but at the end of the day, 12 gauge is the way to go. And so my favorite is 12 gauge. I have the most 12 gauge shotguns out of any of them. And you know, it's really, again, you can shoot anything from a squirrel up to a polar bear with it. So the most versatile weapon in the world, in my opinion. Honestly, guys, if I could only have one gun, or maybe two, because I'd like to have my handgun if I could, but if I really can only have one gun, it'd probably have to be a pump action or some sort of shotgun, because again, they're so versatile that you can use them for all kinds of things. All right, we are winding down to our last two categories here, and mostly we've been talking about items that are either for maybe self-defense or hunting small or medium-sized game. In this case, we need to be able to take big game as well. You can't always live off of squirrels forever. So you need some sort of what I would just call deer hunting rifles, okay? I live in Pennsylvania, so we hunt white-tailed deer, so that's what I call them. It might be an elk rifle for you if you're out west, or a moose rifle if you're up north, but to me, I just call it a deer rifle. So anyways, this is a Remington 700, chambered in 30-06, with a Vortex scope on top, and in my opinion, these are something that every homesteader needs to have, okay? White-tailed deer are the most common deer in the United States, and they are something that we're probably going to have to rely on in a long-term survival scenario. So something like this Remington 700 is obviously a great deer rifle. I've taken a few bucks with this and many doe. But you could also go with something a bit more modern, like this Mossberg Patriot, chambered in 6.5 Creedmoor. If you're just looking for a budget gun, that would be a good way to go. I think that a deer rifle, you can find a pretty good rifle on a tight budget. So if you're somebody that doesn't hunt a lot, finding a budget rifle is probably going to be fine for you. And then the last deer rifle I'm going to talk about is going to kind of bridge the gap into the next category. This is the Ruger Scout rifle, the Ruger Gunsight Scout. Now obviously, if you know much about Scout rifles, I don't have this set up in the Scout rifle configuration, but nonetheless it works just the same. I have a 2-7 Leupold VX Freedom on here, and this is a great handy little compact gun. As you can see, you can have 10-round magazines in it. So what I was going to say is, Ruger marketed this as if you only had one rifle, this is what you should go with. And honestly, I can see what they're talking about, because again, it's a good deer hunting rifle, but at the same time, this gun could be used in a defensive scenario, in my opinion. Holding 10 rounds of .308 Winchester is nothing to laugh at. Now obviously it is a bolt action, so that's a little bit less than ideal. But really guys, any of these deer rifles could also be used in a defensive scenario. Say if you need somebody on Overwatch or something like that, those deer rifles are going to come in handy for that type of stuff, or more long-range shooting. So last but certainly not least category we're going over is going to be defensive carbines. Guys, you can hunt all the deer in the world, you can shoot all the rabbits and squirrels, you can be the best hunter in the world, but it doesn't do you any good if somebody else comes and takes your stuff from you. So you might need to defend your homestead, and some people might argue this is the most important thing, because you can't have anything if other people take it. So in order to defend your homestead, first of all, I think really every American, again, not just every homesteader, should get themselves one good defensive carbine. I choose the AR-15 just because of standardization and all that kind of stuff. But you can go with whatever you want. You want to go with an AK, you want to go with a Mini 14, a M1A, whatever you choose. I choose the AR-15. In this case, I have a Colt 6920 with a Leupold on it and flashlight and all that good stuff. And I think you should have one pretty darn good AR-15 that you personally can train with and use all the time, and that is kind of your go-to rifle. Now, with that being said, if you're on a homestead or you're on some property, there's a good chance you're going to have at least your family with you, and there might be others moving in with you. Whether we like it or not, you might have family members or whatever, and you're probably not going to turn everybody away. So I think in order to have those people around, you need to be able to arm them and have them protect themselves. good loaner or cheap rifles like this is what I would recommend for that. This is a Palmetto State Armory Freedom rifle. In my experience, guys, I've had no problems with them whatsoever. So ideally, you're going to run around with your good carbine and give these ones to anybody who you need to fight for you. And it's not that these rifles aren't good, it's just that they cost a lot less money and might have a little bit less quality parts or quality control than these higher end rifles. Alright guys, so let me know down in the comments what you would keep or change from this list. We've got our deer rifles, our shotguns, our defensive carbines on my chest, and then you got your EDC guns on the hip. You got 22s, bows and arrows, and I think that pretty much covers it. So as always, like and subscribe and keep blasting.